Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. Hopefully tonight everything's going to work beautifully because it's all been tested and checked, and I'm told it's all going to work out really well. So if you'd like to start submitting your questions, we will see if they start to appear, because as my regular viewers will know, this is the usual hiccup in what's going on. There's a slight delay because of the way it all works, but we seem to be making some progress tonight. Thank you for joining me. To start things off, we have here the new Sauer 100. This is the stainless model and the XTA specification, and it arrived last week. I haven't shot it yet, but I have shot quite a lot of Sauer 100s in all sorts of cartridges, calibers and specifications. Been quite a fan of them all, and I don't think this one will be any different, but this one's going to get a full review video done on it as well. It's got a Minox scope on it. Some of you might have seen this in my little unboxing video I did the other day with it, and I'm looking forward to using it. It's got a very nice adjustable cheek piece, very lightweight still, nothing over the top, fully floating barrel. It's a 22-inch barrel, which is 580mm, I think it's off the top of my head. So let's have a look then. Good evening, Simon S. Evening, Chris. What happened to the Sauer 101 Highland XTC? Right, I believe you asked me this question, or somebody asked me this question. The 101 Highland XTC. You'll have to remind me which one that exactly was. The 101 is slightly different to the 100. I've had a 101 Alaska, and I have another 101 in the camouflage, sort of digital camouflage specification. I can't remember the model number of that. Both those are 308s, but the Highland XTC, now was that the carbon fibre one? Because if it was, I had that about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago I think. Again, another Sauer 100. They've all shot well, so I haven't had any kind of... Sometimes it's easy to remember the big negatives rather than the subtle positives. So I have an overall opinion of the 100 and the 101, and it's good. So give me some more detail on that one. Carbon fibre stock. Yes, Simon. That one was done and written up for an article in Rifle Shooter magazine. It's probably over a year ago now. I think there's a small video on here that Dave did actually, a little practice video. Just have a look at it when I did the Blaser shooting sticks as well. It's fundamentally a very nice rifle, and it had been very well done in carbon fibre as well. The stock detail was exceptional. If I remember rightly, the front of the action on the front action bridge was fixed into the stock, and the mounting screws below, and the back end was almost a floating assembly. Sounds a little bit unusual, but it actually worked very well, and I did enjoy shooting it. And as Sauer, Mauser, Blaser do, part of the same group, they don't generally do things badly, to be quite honest. Right. So I ask because they haven't been advertised. That may well be because they were too expensive, or just not enough demand for them from the UK market. And let's not forget, since the time they were kind of broached, the world has been a little bit of a confused, mixed up and delayed place overall, so perhaps that could be it. Your best bet is to ring Sauer UK or Blaser UK, and they will be able to give you all the information laid out on why they may or may not have appeared on the market. So, have we any more questions? Good questions tonight. The ones I think are actually very interesting will win a Hornady hat. UK postage only, and I'm completely judge, jury and mailman on that one, so impress me and you'll get a free hat. But other than that, well, Simon, you've asked 3 questions, well done Simon, but no one else has. So have we got any more from the 22 people watching? Apparently not. What can we help you this week? Well, I was going to go out shooting tonight, but it's cold, it's wet, and it's miserable. And I've got some thermal gear I need to be using, and I don't really want to go out while it's peeing it down with rain, because it affects any thermal, doesn't really give me a solid baseline for reviewing in comparison to other ones I have used. So I didn't go shooting. But yes, so we've got no other questions. Are we going to round this one up early again tonight? This is excellent. At 3 minutes past 8. Anything else from anyone else? I'm going to refresh this, just make sure there's nothing else popping up. But with no one else there, 24 people watching. Any questions? Ask something about this Swarovski DS2 I've been using for the last couple of weeks. I can't tell you loads about the Thermion yet because I haven't done a lot with it, but I am impressed with what it does, but I need to be because it is an expensive premium unit. It's £4,500. But you know, ask your questions on that one and I'll tell you what you can hear about that one. What else could I talk about? I could talk about pretty much every other model of the Sauer 100 rifle. Right. Would you lose power with a 20-inch barrel? Yes, you would, Edward. Simple as that. Shorter barrel, you lose velocity, you lose muzzle energy. How much is slightly dependent on cartridges and bullet weight, this, that and the other. For example, in a 308, you tend to lose less energy so much with heavier bullets than lighter bullets, but that's because it's generally the speed you're losing, not the, you know, the bullets don't get lighter in flight, of course. So just accept it. You know, on a lot of rifles, I wouldn't go for a 20 and a 243 because generally speaking, they're not always deer legal by the rules. They're not going to change anything that's going on, but they wouldn't perhaps pass the rules on paper. 308s and 20-inch are quite nice because they really handle well for stalking rifle, but any kind of target gun you want to use for target work, why would you lose barrel length? Because barrel length is free speed. So in a situation where you don't need the portability or the pointability, stick with the longer barrels in my opinion. 24s and 26s are great for that. But what do you want your rifle for? Next question. Right, Leslie Woods, go on then. Just had my FAC interview. Which is the best target rimfire? Well, what do you call target? Do you call it shooting 2-2 prone at 25 metres or 100 metres or 50 metres? Or you want to shoot biathlon? You want to shoot steel plates? Whatever. Be a bit more specific. But I actually bought, as I've told everybody a million times, I actually bought CZ457 Long Range Precision because I absolutely loved it. Were I to have the choice again this week, I might not buy it. I might buy one of the new Varmint ones. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit more portable. That's not to say I regret the 457 LRP. You'd be very hard to go wrong with a 457, to be quite honest. Anschuts are more expensive. They are very nice, but it all comes down to your ammo selection, ammo consistency. Barrel tuners and things like that are fun things to play with. It can help you out a lot. But I'd probably be always, especially at entry level price points, I'd always be putting the weight of my money into the Optic, not so much the rifle itself. So, right, and it looks like we have got questions coming tonight. Right. Leather Repair Company Ireland, do you have any problems with your Pard or Wraith losing zero as base Sintor? No, I don't. It generally seems to be the reason most people have zero shift issues, specifically on. I've not had any with the Pard. The Wraith, I dropped a rifle. I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. I came in at night. I always say I dropped the rifle. I hadn't zipped up the bottom of the slip, and the rifle came sort of sliding out as I was moving the gun slip. So it didn't smash on the floor, but it kind of went bud thump onto the ground. I went out and checked zero on it, and it had moved slightly. But all the coordinates and the scope are correct. But you have to remember that those mounts, you've got a rail or something fitting onto your gun, because generally they're all using a Picatinny type assembly. So you've got that rail fixed to your gun. You've then got the Picatinny rail fixed to the claw mount, and you've then got the Wraith or the Pard or whatever you got itself fixed to that extended rail. And that extended rail, bear in mind on YouTube Live I can't touch guns. That extended rail, you've got the whole thing moved back here, so you've got quite a lot of leverage and extension on that. These things are made to a price. It's not the greatest, stiffest, hardest aluminium alloys used. Things do shift a little bit. I tend to use an awful lot of thread lock, and I have bonded some of them together almost semi-permanently with thread lock to avoid any issues like that. Other than that time I did give one a fairly serious bump the other day, I've not had an issue, but things can move, and the more you've got extensions and levers, the more those tiny fractional thousandths of a millimetre microns can get amplified along that, and it doesn't take much at this end of a thousandth of a millimetre here to be moving things centimetres down there or even more, and that is a key factor. The other thing is, a lot of the alloys I have seen on some scope systems are not the best quality alloys. There is also an issue I've seen with some of them that are powder coated, and the powder coat can flake off, and that gives you slightly poor interference fit between components. So check it all out, put it together well. Do not strip the threads by over tightening. Everybody's going to say, don't use thread lock, don't use thread lock. I use thread lock. That's my opinion. I use it liberally. But I have experience of it, I know what I'm doing with it, and I know how to undo it if I need to undo it. There are different grades of thread lock for doing different things. Some of them are virtually permanent, some of them are almost tippy-tap free. Don't go in blindfold. Don't just take something and try and take it apart. If it doesn't come apart easily, and you don't know if it hasn't been thread locked or not, well, if it has been, you could start making a mess of things. That's the usual caveat with thread lock. You need to know if it's there or not. But yeah, that's my opinion. So, right, next one. Leslie Woods. We just did yours. Thomas. Hi Chris, I'm looking to buy my first rifle. With lead-free bullets expected to become mandatory, at least here in Denmark, what considerations should be made in regards to twist rate and choosing calibre? The bigger the calibre in terms of the bore size, as opposed to cartridge, the bigger the calibre, the less problems you'll have with the change to copper from lead, because lead is higher density than copper, therefore copper bullets are going to be longer than lead for the same weight. If you look at the general factors of performance, people are erring towards going slightly lighter for the same size bullet in many cartridges, especially 308s, which are super common over here. And generally that's working okay. For example, the 6.5mm rifles usually got about an 8-inch twist on the barrels. A lot of people like to shoot the 140s because they're very, very accurate. You've got great ballistics, great terminal energy, great sectional density, etc., etc. If you swap to a 140 copper monolithic, you know, generally they don't shoot very well because they're a bit too long. They're not quite within the stability margin. Every barrel's slightly different, but I shot 120s in copper and they worked super well, super well. On the 308, the 110 and 130 I think are the way to go, and I wouldn't probably be going up to the 150s, 165s until I was on at least a 38-6 or probably a 300 Win Mag. So think of bullet length, not specifically bullet weight, because everybody's been used to years of bullet weight, and it's length that matters more in terms of whether it will spin stable in the barrel rather than the weight itself. Right. Right, Guy, would you break in a barrel if you bought a new gun for yourself? Appreciate you said previously don't need test guns, but if it was yours to keep. I don't treat any gun, viciously, and in the guns I've had, yeah, I suppose I have broken in barrels. I mean, the last rifle in a centre fire I think I actually got new was my 223 Wild, which is maybe, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, something like that. I think it was one of the first rifles I actually got after I'd got an RFD, but it was actually on my private certificate, that rifle. It just made the handling of it a little bit easier. It's not a particularly vicious cartridge, 223 for starters. It was a well-made gun, well-made barrel. I ran it in gently, but the thing is, I tend to react on what I'm observing from the cleaning regime and flakes of copper filament fragments coming out, things like that. How much of the bullet is being discarded through the bore, and of course I do have a bore scope as well. So I tend to look and I tend to react as it's working in, but I'm not a real a super arduous range shooter these days. I like to know what's working and what's going to work for every man, not what's going to work for the guy who's tested 30 brands of ammunition for different air temperatures and humidity levels, etc. So I do keep things pretty simple sometimes. But yeah, I would just go steady on it, and I would observe what was going on. I certainly won't put a whole box through and then think, oh, is this gun all right? I'd certainly run at least the first 10 through it with a good cleaning regime, just to make sure there was nothing peeling off the jackets anywhere. Right, we've got lots of questions tonight. Obviously it is working. Right, would you break it around? Right. Edward showed it, got 20-inch 6.5 Creedmoor for deer, ticket T3. Very nice. Won't be my choice, but that's that. Hernan Moraga. Double feed versus single feed magazines, what's your preference? Well, good example in front. This is a rifle that looks very similar to a Tikka T3X. It's got very similar pricing, functionality, looks, features, everything. 60 degree on the bolt, 70 degree on the Tikka. The big difference is this compared to Tikka, this is a twin column magazine. You can load it through the top, you don't need to take it out of the gun. On the single columns, you've got to load them out the front, blah, blah, blah. Now, whether it's down to the specifics of the rifle, or the fact it's been a homogeneous build using their own system, or whether it's more of a copycat system using something along an AICS format, something like that, I don't think I've had a twin column mag ever fail to feed. I don't think. The singles sometimes more so, but that's not necessarily just the magazine itself. That could well be the fact it's just a better integrated system in terms of its design. For example, one of my first centerfires was a Seiko 75 22-250, and that's got a twin column staggered feet mag, 3-lug bolt. That thing fed absolutely perfectly, and it's the same sort of design as the twin column in this, and it's the complete opposite of the Tikka. Of course, the Seiko S20 now is it's gone with a single column, or a single centre feed anyway, but kept a 3-lug bolt, and I don't really see the point, because I like the Tikka system the way it is, I like the Seiko system the way it is. I was never a fan of the semi-controlled feed bolt on the 85, but 75 was good, and I don't really see why they've changed that and lost it for the S20. I particularly liked actually the Seiko A7, which I think they've stopped making now, which was kind of a real bit of a quiet horse, that one, because you didn't see many of them around. But I've used them on a few occasions. I hunted with one in Finland actually at the Seiko factory, and it was always a rifle I quite liked, because you could click rounds in the top, because the feed lips actually sprung apart, so you could pop the rounds straight between them, but it still had that centre feed. And of course, being a Seiko ticket, it was a very well built rifle. So there's pros and cons, but don't just look at the mag, look at the whole gun and the whole system. Stephen Lewis says, Chris Parkin, I learned a lot from your videos. How do you think the new 6.8 cartridges that the US military is producing will affect the sporting market? You'll all be able to shoot longer range, bigger deer, further out, with better ballistics. It'll be future proof, copper won't be a problem, they'll be the greatest things in sliced bread, and you'll all want to buy one, and every other rifle ever made before will be rubbish, and everybody will want to make a new reticle specific to it. There's 10 reasons that's why 6.8 is going to be better. Right, please, if you don't get sarcasm, you've missed me. I mean, let's face it, 6.8mm is a 270 anyway, isn't it? If I remember rightly, can't remember. Right, been looking at the Seiko 85 Black Wolf. That's funny, I was just talking about the 270, and I had those in the Seiko 85 Black Wolf. But I read that Seiko 85 series have ejection problems, even in size medium and large. What's your experience? I don't like 270s, to be honest, but I will say this, that Black Wolf was a stunningly good shooting rifle I had. I specifically remember, I got that when I started working with David Land Field Sports Photography, and Dave was a good shot, and I didn't know he was a good shot. He seemed to know what he was doing. I didn't have a problem with him doing it, and I gave him this rifle to have a go with, because he's a big fella, and 270 is it's just a bit of a beast, I find. And I've shot way bigger and all sorts of other stuff, but 270 is great. Anyway, he shot the most stunning group with this rifle, and I was watching him do it, so I know he wasn't cheating or anything, and the gun was a great shooter, and I could shoot okay, but Dave shot it even better than I did, and it worked perfectly. So I can only report on what I've found. The Seiko 85 Black Wolf in 270 was a fine performing rifle, and interestingly as well, the Black Wolf being a slightly heavier rifle build, it just calms down that 270 a little bit as well, because it is quite a fiery cartridge, as 270, and effectively it's a neck down 3006. I love 3006, but I just find the 270 far sparkier. But yeah, that was a good rifle, and I won't say it wasn't. So yeah, it worked in my experience. A little bit of internet rumour can go a very, very long way. Right, where are we now? David Levine, Chris, apologies, I just caught the end of the barrel length 243 question. I'm thinking of having my 24-inch 243 short to a 19-inch 1 in 10. Switch using it Malfi Fox 58 grain low. Should I do it? Well, you can if you want, but why would you want to lose the speed? And I know for a foxing rifle, you know, you've not got specific energy concerns, and the whole point of shooting a 58 in a 243 is you want point and squirt. It is a fast, flat shooting cartridge. There are a few that will over a short range, say to maybe, I don't know, 250, 300 metres, there's not a lot going to shoot as flat as that. But, you know, I don't know, I just don't like losing speed. And the thing is, I'd walk around with a gun, or maybe you have, walk around with a gun for a year and then say, you know, I don't like this at all. Have it chopped down if you want them. But personally, I've always preferred the 75s or 87s, particularly the 75s in 243 for foxing, just because it seems to be the best of the balance. And, you know, on nights like tonight where we've got, you know, 30-mile-an-hour wind speed gusts, the ability to fend off the wind is always going to be the test at night, more so than the range when you've got a flat shooting cartridge. So you get flat shooting with a 58, which is quite badly affecting the wind, as opposed to 75 that's a bit slower, not quite as flat, but you're not aiming off as much. But generally you've got a good idea of how far your shot is anyway, and if you go for a good point blank zero, you're not going to have a huge amount of issue, except for the wind. So those are my thoughts, you know, opinions are like, everybody's got one. Right, Leather Repair Company Ireland. I am one of the lucky ones in the UK. I own a couple of handguns, and I've eventually bought a Savage 110 in 223. I would like to get into fox hunting, but having problems finding one. The Savage 110 223. Now, didn't I have one of those a few months ago? Was it called the Apex, which is like a package set up with it? Savage make a huge number of different rifles, different specifications. Your best bet is to ring your dealer and get your dealer to ring Edgar Brothers, but they are the UK importer. But of course, at this moment in the world, you know, I'm waiting for an engine sensor. I've been waiting for an engine sensor for 3 months on a Nissan truck. I can't get it. I need to get my Nikon DSLR camera repaired. Can I get spare parts for it? Nope. Because everybody's just blaming everything. Even if it's true or false, everybody's blaming everything on, you know, the world shutting down, and then, you know, the canal was shut for 10 days, and, you know, it's a world of delays at the moment. So could just be that. But I got the 223 Savage, shot pretty well. I shot some foxes with it, you know, no dramas for that. But did have a bit of an issue with the trigger. I tended to find my glove was catching a little bit on the trigger, but that was maybe just me. I got a very amusing email today from an editor of mine because a reader had seen a picture of me using a pair of quite thin Axo Mechanics gloves, shooting a rifle, as many of you seen me using these things, and I was accused of being a man wearing thick leather gardening gloves and was a danger to be handling a rifle in such a non-tactile format, which both the editor and I found most amusing. But apparently the picture looked bright, therefore the weather can't have been cold and there was no reason for wearing gloves. But these people exist, don't they? So we have to ponder to them. Leslie Woods, have you tried the Element Optic scopes? If so, are they worth buying? Max range, I'll be shooting with 250 yards bench rest, or should I pay more for a better scope? I have used some Element Optics. Excuse me 1 second, I'm just going to have a glass of water. I have used some Element Optics. I had one from Sportsman on an FX air rifle. Let me just see why that's not refreshing itself. I've got an advert now appeared on my questions feed. Let me just get right. So max range you'll be shooting with 250 yards. It's not all about distance with optics, and you know, do they make the reticle you want? Is it going to give you the subtension on target you want? Do you want first focal plane, second focal plane? Is it within your budget? Do you like the clicks? There's a lot more to look at than just the price and the name. And Elements, if I remember correctly, you're probably moving somewhere between £750 and £1,500 market-ish. I can't remember them all. And no, optically, it's not the equal of a £3,000 European optic, but you're getting, you know, a lot of functionality for your money. And if you've got, you know, I am starting to notice my eyes giving me some issues now. You know, I'm got the old stretchy arm thing where your old book's further away to read them, and you know, that's just age catching on with me now. I'm not particularly old, but so I think to myself anyway. So you know, a guy at 25 Has one of them got astigmatism? Has one of them got short-sighted? Has one of them long-sighted? There are 101 other factors to include. But the core things on paper are, does the Optic give you the on paper specifications you need? Because if it does, great, look at one. If it doesn't, well, look at something different, because if it's not right on paper, it's certainly never going to make up for it with glassware and an optical capability and subtension when you see one. Right. Are we back online there, guys? We're back online. It is absolutely heaving it down with rain, and I wouldn't be surprised if we've got some internet and electrical issues tonight. Anyway, right, talking about the Bog tripod. The difference in price is the difference in price. The difference in weight is about 300 grams. Otherwise, they are identical in every other feature, form, functionality, angles, stiffness, height, reach, everything about them is identical. Even the diameter of each of the 3 sections of leg is identical. It's only that 300 grams in weight. So that simplifies as to whether you want to buy one or the other. I will say the carbon fibre one, when you're walking around at night, if you've not got gloves on, as apparently I'm a dastardly man for wearing gloves, you don't draw the heat out your fingers on the carbon fibre quite so much as you do with aluminium, but that's, you know, standard across every industry in the world for every product. Metals draw more temperature away from your skin because you draw the heat out of your skin, unlike polymers and carbon fibre, etc. Other than that, do I like it? Yes, I do like it. I'll tell you what some of the reasons I do like it. Number one, those big jaws and they're like finned rubber, you can tighten them onto your rifle, specifically sporting rifles, and you don't need to put a lot of force on that clamp to actually grip the rifle. If you've really got a spin on those, some sporting rifles, especially synthetic stocks, you know, you're going here on the front here, and you actually crimp the stock a little bit, not permanently so, but you can actually, and I've had on one of my guns, it did give me some barrel harmonics issues, and it shifted my point of aim. Depends whether you go in front of the action or whether you go under the magazine, you know, that affects your balance point. You've got the knob on the other side, does the tension to adjust your vertical elevation, and of course you've got the 3 button positions here to control the leg angles, and we're not a bit lacking on space in here, but it will fold out, you know, completely all the way down, or it'll stop about there in the centre, or if you click it there, it's got 5 degrees. In fact, it's marked on them. 20, 45 and 85 degrees on the legs. So, other than that, on the feet down here, you've got steel spikes, or if you spin the rubber foot out, you've got the rubber foot. And I'll tell you for a fact that when I'm sat in my office, I've actually got an air rifle sat on one of these with the rubber feet down, because I'm after the squirrels outside. So that sits there with the gun in it pretty much most of the day, most days I'm in the office. So yeah, I'm quite a fan. I do like it. It doesn't have a fully canting head, but on the flip side of that, a lot of tripods that aren't super expensive that do use a ball head have got very high centre of axis on them, and they're a little bit top heavy, and you lose some stability in that. Whereas that one, I've simply got rotational control, and I can set the level with just one of the legs, generally speaking. I think I personally don't use tripods if I'm doing if I'm covering a lot of ground, a lot of distance. I tend to use them from sedentary hunting positions where I set up, I stay put. And that's why I want this, you know, I'm not moving, so I need to make sure the rifle and the kit I'm using is going to reach out to wherever I can safely see. If I'm walking and stalking, I'll use quad sticks. Tripods generally a bit too big, too noisy, too heavy, too bulky. So that's my choice. So there we go. Right, Thomas. I see the Mauser M12 Impact, specifically designed for shooting long range, has a shorter barrel, 50% than the other Mauser M12s. Why does a shorter barrel improve the ability to shoot further? It doesn't, it's just marketing. It's anything that, if you put long range in, look for something on YouTube, type long range, it's a buzzword in the shooting industry. Everybody wants to say long range this, long range that, long range the other. Long range is a bit like saying it's, where's the data? Longer than what? You know, is 100 metres long range? Well, if you shoot pistols, yeah, it really is. Is 1,000 metres long range? Well, if you're a crewman on a battleship, no, it isn't, is it? So what's long range? What is long range? if you're talking about a gun that originates from a European hunting market where they don't have anything like the longer range shooting capabilities and they're woodland stalking, long range to them might be 150 metres. But, you know, it's horses for courses, and logic doesn't lie, technical data doesn't lie. 51 centimetres is 51 centimetres, and you will lose velocity on that compared to a barrel 10 centimetres longer. It's a simple fact. So I'm not having a go at anybody for this, but it's marketing. And for example, Mauser, I've just had a Mauser M18. That's been a really great rifle. Big long barrel on it though. It's a 24, I think. 24 millimeter barrel, 22 millimeters in diameter. You know, if that's the long range precision rifle they want to make, why didn't they put the 51 centimeter barrel on that? You know, just everything has to be compared against its peers, against itself. You know, if they say the 24-inch barrel, which is what, 610 millimeters, whatever it is on the long range precision, then why is the smaller rifle with the shorter barrel the long range rifle? You know, they're not arguing about it; they're just marketing it. And long range to a hunter and long range to a target shooter is very, very different. 250 metres is quite a long shot for a deer stalker. If you know, especially if you're a woodland stalker, a 250 metre shot down a long range, quite an unusually long shot. But is it long range? Well, no, it's not to a 1,000 metre 6.5mm Creedmoor shooter that just wants to hit steel against wind flags, fighting wind flags. Yeah, so the data doesn't lie. Right, the Seiko 85 series does not have an ejection problem. Look into it more. It's how the ejection mechanism will work. Hernan Morgan, yes, you're correct there. I think this comment's directed more at the original question than me as an answer. The 85 has a manual ejector, so as the bolt comes back, there's basically like a little blade in the bottom of the action, and as the bolt, imagine my fingers there, that mouse is the bolt face. As it comes back, it draws the cartridge over the manual ejector, so if you pull the bolt back really slowly, the cartridge will hardly flick off from under the extractor claw, whereas if you whack the bolt back fast, it's going to hit and fling out hard. So a manual ejector like that tends to give you, the shooter, control over how vigorously you eject the brass. If you think of the flip side to that, on a sprung plunger ejector, that sprung plunger ejector on the back of the cartridge, as soon as that cartridge is coming back, it's being forced against the chamber wall, and as soon as the bolt head, as soon as the cartridge neck comes out of the abutment and then out of the front of the action into the ejection opening, it will just suddenly flick out and go out to the side. So you haven't got any control over how hard it flicks out. Whereas, yeah, like I said, on the 85 with the manual ejector, you have got that control. So that can be, as Hernan says, the difference between how some people consider it and others. Oh, we got lots of questions tonight. Excellent. I think I need a bigger glass of water. Oh, my word. Is it that time already? Thank you very much. Thanks everybody to the lovely Limbo who's just brought me a cup of tea. Right. Rob Newton. So I just lost track where we're at. Rob Newton, right. I've just purchased a Ticket T3X and 308 for deer. What ammo choice would you recommend looking at? Brand, weight, cheers, Rob. Well, if you're still in the current world and using lead bullets, start with 150 grain soft point, something from Federal or Hornady or any manufacturer really. Just something nice, straightforward, simple. Don't start chasing super long Seekant ogive bullets and the greatest ballistic tip for long range precision and this, that, and the other. Just find something simple, a bit old school that just works. And generally, soft points will do that. Because at the end of the day, if you're going stalking deer, you need to put a bullet in a circle about that size under any conditions, at whatever range you think is going to apply to the land you're stalking on. So it can be very, very, very. Barrel to barrel can be different from the same gun, from the same factory. You get two barrels come off production line next to each other and they have different preferences. But I don't think, yeah, just start with 150 grain. Don't go light, because if you go light, you're losing sectional density, and it's kind of not the point of shooting a decent sized bullet. But somewhere from 150 to 165 grains is the optimum place, in my opinion, for a 308 rifle using a jacketed lead bullet. Right, Sean Jenkins, what choice would you recommend scope for a 17 HMR? What are you doing with your 17 HMR? I've shot one with a 5 to 25 Schmidt and Bender on it because I wanted to shoot some steel and see what it was like. 17 HMR for hunting, how much do you want to spend? Are you going to be lamping? Are you going to be using it at dawn and dusk? Are you going to be using it only in daylight? How much are you going to spend? I would go probably, I don't know, the thing is, the more you shoot, the more you see, the more you do, the harder it is to kind of just sort of pick out an average, because I just know so many options and have used so many options. I kind of like, on a sporting rifle, to go no bigger than a 4 to 16. I think that's more than I'm going to need. Maybe something like one of the Zeiss V4s or one of the Minox ZX5s. It's a while since I've had a ZX5 Minox, and I was looking through this one today, and I'd forgotten just how nice the image quality is on them. I am quite a fan of those. So yeah, but then again, you know, you're looking in the £1,000 market at this point. There's plenty of Hawk scopes make some excellent options. The Frontier 30s, the Sidewinder 30 is a fantastic scope for what it costs. It gives you huge capability. You know, do you want to go first or second focal plane? I think generally speaking, the only place these days I won't use first focal plane is if I'm using a rear mounted night vision, because the reticle size variation seems a bit awkward with them. But I would generally use a first focal plane for everything else now, other than extreme long range target or small targets and bench rest or stuff I don't shoot, to be honest. So yeah, come back to me, Sean, with a price point and I'll see what I can pick up. Right, James Carey. Getting spares. During my army days in the mid-80s, if you went to stores for kit, the reply was often, went down in the Atlantic conveyor. Well, I can completely understand that. It's weird. I'm not an army guy, I never had an experience of that kind of thing, but I can imagine exactly what you mean. It's a bit like the old, you know, army phrase that I was taught by someone who got me into this business, who was an army guy, and he always said, everything's about hurry up and wait. So looks like you need to hurry up and wait on those spares. But yeah, that's it's a good old-fashioned comment that went down in the Atlantic convoy on a Q ship or something. The Q ships, yeah, they were Q ships, weren't they? Right, 457. This is Surgeon 591. CZ457 LRP is the standard varmint version. Is the LRP worth the extra £500? You just said the LRP is this. Oh, LRP versus the standard varmint version. That's an interesting one, actually. Right, starting on your first point. Right, number one, you get the bigger fluted barrel on the LRP, which is very nice. Is it any more accurate fundamentally? I think you'd have trouble really arguing that in a court of law, but it looks nice, it handles really nicely, and I think it makes the rifle seriously good to look at. I went over to an indoor rifle range last week. Some of you might have seen the video at Baildon, and I took a couple of rifles with me, and daft as it was, I couldn't find where I put my 2.2 ammunition for the LRP. When I got home, I realised it had got tucked in a pocket in the back of a bag, but anyway. But the guy I was there with saw this rifle as I got it out, and he thought I'd brought some like big varmint centerfire or something, because the initial first impression you get when you see that rifle is it's a kind of bigger gun than it is, but it's only a rimfire. The standard varmint version, I think for a lot of users, perhaps even myself included, the standard varmint does have a lot to say for it. I wouldn't criticise you either way for which you chose, because a lot of it does go on looks, and I have to say sometimes I'm a bit of a sucker for looks, and I do quite like the looks of the LRP. They are doing a couple with, I think they're doing, I don't remember the names off the top of my head. I've seen them advertised recently, and I might get one, I'm not sure. Certainly it's a review rifle, but they've got some sort of intermediate between the polymer varmint stock and going up to the LRP. Now, I've just had a CZ557 308 effectively the synthetic stock they make. And do you know what? It's a really good stock because it's proper dimensions on it. It's got plenty of, you know, meat and the grip to get your hand on it. It's not like a little Walmart kids gun, which is often what the Americans seem to treat 2-2 rimfires as. Whereas the Europeans now seem to be getting into this mood now that they want to make the rimfires similar to the centerfires in handling ergonomics and dynamics, which I like. So, no, it's not worth an extra £500, but you can put a few scratches on a shotgun and it's 20 grand more expensive. So, arty scratches they may be, we've applied with amazing amounts of skill, but they are only scratches at the end of the day, aren't they? You make your choices. James Carey, out of focus. Which is out of focus? Something's out of focus. Don't know what's out of focus, James. If it's me, that's my iPhone's fault. It's the one thing I usually rely on it for. The other thing is also my opinion on the Ruger Scout rifle from 308, again for range field use. Ruger Scout rifles, do you know, I don't think I've ever shot one. I think that's one of those rifles that kind of, it was a bit 90s, was it? Was it the old Jeff Cooper Scout thing? With the, did it have the, no, that was a Steyr that had the folding feet on it. I can't think, but the, it's not jumping out at me. I can't remember specifically what it is. But again, range stroke field use, those are two completely sort of opposing environments. That's like saying I want my car rallying a bit for Grand Prix. You know, you're going to have to accept massive compromise if you go somewhere in the middle of two widely differentiated areas. So, yeah, right. Also, I bought, sorry, this is Surgeon 501. Also, I bought a Ruger American Ranch in 300 blackout on your recommendation. Chopped it to 12.5 inch and put an ATEC mod on. Hilariously quiet with my 220 grain subsonic loads. It's my favourite offshoot. I did quite like that Ruger, and I was actually offered to buy it from review, but at the time I couldn't really justify it and I didn't really need it. But it was just a nice little gun. I did like shooting that one, and it was a bit different. But it's being different is good for me because I mean I test so many 308s, 243s, 223s, 2.2 rimfires. It was very different. First time I had a blackout, excellent fun, a bit of a learning curve and experiment for me because I got to play with the reloading of it, use the subsonic heavy bullets, and I've loaded 308 subsonically in the past, quite experimentally using different bullet weights and different bullet shapes to get the stability at lower speeds. So the blackout was interesting like that. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Rob Newton, hi Chris, thinking of getting a HIC 19. I know you had one for review. Is it the best choice for the money at 1200 quid or should I consider Pulsar? I've still got it because I just like it, and to be honest I just can't see, I've used plenty of other thermal that yes it has got better image quality, but that HIC 19 it's just so handy, and it just doesn't seem to be some kind of £4,500 onerous baggage that I'm always worried about. I just put it in the side pocket of my bag and it's there if I need it. Batteries last well on it. There was a noticeable improvement in the HIC 19 in terms of the battery capacity, the firmware, the operation menu systems compared to the Vulcan 35, which has gone back now, which was the sort of previous incarnation, evolution from HIC, and that itself has been updated as well. So you've now got things like the 5 brightness levels, not 3, same with the contrast, etc. The only thing I don't like about the HIC is that they don't have a timestamp on any video or stills footage, which is a bit of a shame, because you can save it afterwards and rename it and this, that and the other if you store it every night, but I tend to sort of download my stuff once a week, and because I don't use it for fun to post out there, I have to use mine journalistically or for YouTube, and sometimes I can be left thinking I wish this had a time and date stamp on it, because I could remember I was out Tuesday night, I was there, I remember this happening, and I did get it on video, but I've got to sift through them all to find it. So HIC, maybe put a timestamp on stuff please, because it's, I think, is it metadata it's called, on photographic things like that. I don't think it's a huge task, but maybe it can, maybe it can't. Other than that, I do like it because it just lives in my hand, it's just there. It's not here now actually, funnily enough, but yeah, and it's just always to my eye, and I've got the video ready to do of it, the full review, but it's just getting that last 10% finished. And there was a really interesting point with it the other week when I was watching a fox which came from a completely different direction. It wasn't any kind of safe location to shoot, so I wasn't really looking that way for them. But I did. I mean, I saw it because I knew they could sometimes come that way, and I was kind of like this, trying to, like a sort of a cowboy film or a western film, trying to lean around a corner, trying to just show your eye. Couldn't have done that with a binocular or anything big, and the 19 just in my hand was great because I could just sneak around, and I didn't feel totally overt. I stayed covert. To be honest, I actually scared the fox off because it was walking towards me. I wasn't in any position to move. I wasn't in any safe way I could have shot it in the direction it was coming. So I kind of gave it a bit of a warning that there was something ahead it wasn't sure about. And sure as it turned tail and scampered off the other way. So I didn't, miss it, didn't do anything to frighten it off forever, but I just sort of dissuaded it. But interestingly, it had a really bad limp on it, and I haven't seen it since. This was, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, was it? Yeah, but the 19 was good for that. Do you know what? It's the only one I've considered buying because it just seems to do everything I need and doesn't cost the earth. So yeah. Right, Moody Edge. Anybody here applied for an FAC or shotgun's tail while on antidepressants? Heard various mixed opinions of it. Will be granted or not? No clue. Been waiting well over 9 months now. Zzz. Of any medical concerns, I think everybody's in is in a huge battle at the moment of firearms applications, shotgun certificate applications. Even some dealers have been having some problem, which of course limits their livelihood. I was very fortunate in the fact my dealer's license was renewed a month early, about 3 weeks early, just before we all got locked down. I was very lucky in that respect because I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't have had it. But yeah, applications can be taking a long time at the moment, but I'm not in a position to comment on that. So there are plenty of people in this world who have various medical conditions, various things that have to be reported and discussed and come up at FAC application. And the only people you can talk to about it really are face-to-face, the firearms licensing organisation, possibly BASC, and of course your doctor as well. Because some people have the hurdle of the fact their doctor will not give them a medical report. I was reading last week. They've refused on the grounds of the fact they absolutely won't have anything to do with shooting whatsoever, which I think someone else said was actually illegal for them to do that. But under the freedom of information, I think you can apply for your own medical records anyway. Right, Thomas, which rifles do you actually own yourself and what made you choose them? Well, since being a journalist and having all sorts, many. Most of the ones I have I've had since long before then. I'm just trying to think now. I've got various. I've got the usual things. I've got usual things for UK. 223 rimfire, 223 wild, which is a 223. Up until slight changes in dimensions. I have got a 65-55 stalking rifle. I've got a 260 target and varmint rifle, which is long range stuff. I've got a 300 Win Mag, which I've used on big deer. And I think that's it for what I actually have, which is mine on my own personal thing. What we call my guns from the old days. When I'm not working, I use my guns. For shooting for my own pleasure. Other than that, everything else really is just long-term test guns that just get used because the guns I trust for test purposes. There's no point me putting a test scope, a review scope, on a rifle because I don't test things. Remember, I review them. There's a difference there. Testing is laboratory based, basically. With it's a more complicated factor. I wouldn't put a review rifle scope on a rifle I didn't trust, and likewise, I won't put a rifle, and I won't do the opposite way around. I have to trust both parts of it to interchange them. So a new scope will always go on a trusted rifle. A trusted rifle will always be underneath a new scope. It's a simple factor, and it's saying the opposite way around. So that's how I have to do it. There's also the question of the fact that depending on the seasons, depending what's coming in with night vision or thermal. zeroing rifles is a waste of ammunition, which is important for use during reviews, and it is a concern, but I have to balance the books on that one. So I don't like taking rifle scopes off unnecessarily. I'm very fortunate that people like Sportsmatch and Tier 1 have given me a lot of scope rings. So generally I will leave a scope in its rings, and I try to use rifles mainly with Picatinny rails on, because I can generally be back on target even if I've swapped rifles and kept notes within a couple of clicks, and I'm not messing around walking forwards, bore sighting, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, those are the ones I own. The rest of the ones are just test guns for work, whether for scopes to ride on or guns to ride under, either or. But I won't use long-term guns I don't trust, and the same with optics. So you'll see, it's hard to tell really without asking me straight out, but you know, you'll see some guns that loiter forever because nobody asks for them back immediately. They like having them seen, and I'm only going to use them if they're useful to me. So they might get used again in a scope review. For example, the Mauser M18 of the week. I had a Carles K525 scope, came in, whack, straight on top of the Mauser, because the straight on top of the Mauser to verify it. And then I had a Daniel Defence delivered, and the scope on that wouldn't do what I needed it to do. So straight off, Picatinny rails everywhere again. That came straight off. Carles went on. I was in a position where I could put some rounds down and zero it within a couple of shots because I had a huge background with splash visible, and that was that. So that scope got used, interchanged quite quickly, and then it went back on the Mauser again for something else. So yeah, if you see scopes or rifles here, there and everywhere, you can say one thing about them: I trust them with my own time and ammunition that I'm very grateful for from Hornady and Edgar Brothers, who are very generously helped me out. Right, David Levine, now thinking of cancelling the barrel work. 24 inches just so long in the truck, but it shoots quarter minute or less. Stress now, thanks Chris. Just go halfway, ask a 22. Go 22 if you want. If you're going 22 with a 75 grain bullet, I've been shooting a Mauser M18 for 3 years, to the fact that it's past its best because I've used it so much. That's a 22, shooting 75 grain VMAX. I have loved, still love that rifle, and it's it's not even an expensive gun, but it's just such a great rifle, and that's exactly it. 22 inch 243. What a great tool it is. And that's the catchphrase for me. Is it a tool or a toy? Because there's a lot of toys out there. And a lot of things about toys are shaking them in front of your mates and say, my toy costs more than yours. My daddy got me this for Christmas, blah, blah, blah. Right, next question. Oh, they're buzzing in tonight, so right. Thoughts on barrel breakings? Done that, work back, Daniel. Ronquillo, something like that. We have somebody apparently Russian. Yeah, my Russian's not that good tonight. Maybe Andrei Ugorov will translate that for me. Right, Thomas, what do you know of the quality of Lothar Wolf the barrels? Been watching some Strasser RS14 reviews, and when shooting groups of more than 3, the groups seem to open up a lot as barrels get hot. Is it the group opening up? Is it the ammo? Is it all sorts of things? I had a 22BR built. When my Seiko 75 22-250 wore out, I had it rebarreled in the 22BR, which was a bit of a mistake, to be honest, because although it shot extremely well, I didn't like the fact I lost the magazine feed and I went to these little fiddly cartridges. But I was easily impressed in those days by accuracy and group shooting and this, that and the other. You kind of forget that there are other practical matters to think about too. That was a Walther barrel. It was fine, absolutely fine. That gun shot extremely well, and it lasted well too. I sold that gun for good money in good condition, and the guy who bought it off me put about twice as much as I ever put through it, still through it. So yeah, you can always get one-off barrels that come off the production line that aren't quite as good as the rest, but that's down to quality control and consistency in manufacture. If the Strasser are using Walther barrels, of course, you could say the big competitor for them is Blaser, and Blaser hammer forge their own. So, yes, hi Chris. Right, Stuart Woodman. Your thoughts on Barnes TTSX bullets, please. Haven't shot any, haven't used any. People I know and trust are very confident in them, so I defer to their opinion, because that will be Andrew Venables, who's a good friend of mine, and he swears by them, and he's shot more stuff than most people have had hot dinners, so it's good enough for me. And I've had good success with the Hornady GMX, as has he actually. But in terms of his experience over 50 years of shooting and probably 30 years of centerfire serious hunting, he said he's used TTSX for a long time, longer than it. Now he's becoming more likely it will be permanent. I don't know. So yeah, if he reckons it's good, I'll go with that, because I will happily defer to people I trust and take their experience on board without any kind of great need to prove it to my own ego. Right, Stuart Woodman in 243. How heavy are they? Because I don't think you're going to get, in a 10-inch twist 243, I don't think you're going to get much more than 80 grains out of a copper bullet. I've got 80 grain GMX, which they actually shoot quite well. Yes, this big factor remains that if for us in the UK, if we're going to hunt Scotland, we need to go 100 grain plus for 243, and that's always going to be the slight, and that's always going to be a problem because it just isn't going to work. 308 is never going to be a problem. 65 is never going to be a problem. Bigger than 308, 306, 300 Win Mag, 270, all that kind of thing. You're never going to have a problem because you've got spare space, spare capacity, spare versatility, if you like. But the 243, at the end of the day, the 243 was originally designed as a varmint cartridge. It was not really designed as a deer cartridge. It was designed to push 75 to 80 grain bullets at about 3,200 feet per second, I think it was, something like that. And guess what? It still does exactly what it was designed to do. But look at the complication that's happened because of everybody wanting to push longer, skinnier, heavier bullets, and now, of course, longer, skinnier, lighter, non-toxic bullets. This is where the 6mm Creedmoor has kind of got its name building, because people say, oh, get a 6mm Creedmoor. Well, the thing with the 6mm Creedmoor is that's been, fundamentally it's going to push the bullet at about the same speed, but it's been based around using a faster twist rate, so you can use bullets well over 100 grains, 110, 130, 115 grains. So when you transfer back to copper, if you have to, that fast twist rate in the barrel, a 7 or maybe even a 6.5 inch twist, is going to handle heavier copper again. And that might be where the 6mm Creedmoor in the UK will gain reputation. But will it worldwide? I mean, at the moment, I think it's popular because it's good for the PRS guys. You've got very low recoil. You've got the ability to see bullet splash and excellent wind booking skills. It's an accurate cartridge, but aren't they all if they're loaded correctly? But yeah, it's ideal for that competitive format, which of course brings a great reputation for it. But in terms of a hunting round, well, is ammunition easily available? I've been shooting 260s for 10 years. I think I've only ever seen one box of ammo for sale in a shop for a 260. I'm not saying it isn't available, but it's not like bumping into some 243, 223 or 308 or 306 or 6555 or 300 Win Mag or 270. There's so many that we're going to go ahead on the popularity stakes. Anyway, I'm dribbling now. Right. Edward Sheridan Blazes, R8, can you get a barrel combination that you don't have to change the bolt? A barrel combination you don't have to change the bolt if you stay with the same case head dimensions. So if you go down the 308 route with a .473 inch case head, you could shoot 22 250, 243, 65 Creedmoor, 6mm Creedmoor, 243, 308, 3006, 270. There's probably others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but those are the sort of core fundamentals for the UK market. You wouldn't need to change the bolt face, bolt head for any of them, I don't think. The biggest change you're going to have is if you go down to a 223 or if you go up to a 300 Win Mag or a 458, sorry, is it 4? Yeah, can't think now. One of the Win Mags, something like that. So 7mm Rem Mag, things like that there on the bigger bolt face of the belted. Is it .532 inch, I think it is? Can't remember. So yeah, if you stick with that huge range of 0.473, bolt face, the 308 bolt face, you won't need to change the bolt face. The only thing is that some of them have got slightly longer stroke than others, like the 3006 is a long action, 243 308 is short action. But I think that's just on the actual rails on the Blazer which will handle that. So there you go. Best bet on that is to ring Chris at Swillington Shooting Supplies, because he just knows everything there is to need to know about Blazer in the UK. What will happen with lead and smaller varmint rounds like 223? Paul Smith. Well, that's the big fear, isn't it? I don't really want to be the one that talks about it, but if we lose lead in the bigger cartridges for game, will it then creep down to losing it in the smaller cartridges? Because if it goes to the extent, 223 is maybe not so bad, because I mean I've shot things like Barnes varmint grenades years ago, which shoot really well, and because you've no issues with making bullets quite explosive for terminal ballistic performance. Whereas with the sort of larger cartridges for deer and game, you have to be a bit more controlled in that respect. So I don't think 223 will be a huge problem. Neither will 22-250 or 243. Anything, basically anything where you don't care about what happens as long as it's a clean kill, you'll get away with non-cotton, non-lead, no problem. I have used some 22 rimfire non-toxic. It is horrific. I've used better 410 shotguns. In fact, I've used better 22 rimfire shot shells, which are well known to be horrendously inaccurate. And if it gets down to air rifles and things, I'm not really very hopeful, but I don't really want to get involved in that because it's something that I don't think any of us want. I don't think we can do a huge deal about it. Let's just hope our governing bodies might. Right, when you go hunting, do you use... hang on, what's that one now? When you go hunting, do you use a rifle you are reviewing, or do you use your own rifle? It depends what I'm hunting, because these days, I say these days, not a great deal at all recently, but last time I went stalking, I took my own 6.5-55 Mauser M12, because that's a very reliable gun with a reliable optic on it, and it's mine. So yes, and it was I was stalking for roe deer, so it was ideal, and I used it, great stuff. But a lot of the time I go on hunting trips, and of course I'm on a hunting trip with a hunting company, and they've brought guns for us to use. So whether it be a trip to Ireland with a Sauer 100, or a trip to Bulgaria on wild boar with a Merkel Helix, the Speedster, things like that, it can vary a lot. A trip to America was with Savage. Germany's this, that. It just all depends. I went to Czech, that was a CZ. So yeah, you have to kind of rely on the tool that's put in your hands. And specifically that trip with the CZ, we were just sort of at dinner the night before the hunt. This was my first ever wild boar hunt. The night before, we just said, "There's your rifle, there's your box of ammo. See you at 7 o'clock in the morning." It's like, okay, we don't even get to try it, don't even get to shoot it. We were told it was zeroed, and I only got one shot, and one shot the next day. Fortunately, it was a very successful single shot, so I was more than happy. But you just never know, do you? So yeah, we tend, generally speaking, on trips away, which is mostly what I do now, because I'm too busy, to do a lot in the UK. Certainly not travelling to Scotland, things like that. But I went out to Ireland, took my own 300 Win Mag, and it just depends what fits in where. But if it's overseas trips, yeah, which is where you tend to think of it as hunting rather than stalking, which is, I don't know. I do use the word hunting more now, but stalking still seems to be what we say in the UK. Yeah, if it's overseas, it'll be with their rifle, and if it's over here, it's generally with mine. Generally. But it all depends. Right, Guy, do different moderators suit different calibers or barrels, or is it just the best you can afford will perform the best? That's quite a difficult question, that, because there's so many choices in moderators, and how long's a piece of string? I mean, I used don't let me bore you for hours, but I used the other day, I've been sent the T16 moderator, the T12 moderator, from Wildcat. Is it the P12? P12 Wildcat, which is a big moderator, and I got that with a 6.5mm diffuser at the end for use on some of the 6.5mm test rifles and specific threads and this, that, and the other. Because of course I always need different threads, different cartridges, different calibers, etc. This thing was massive, but wow, it was quiet, very, very quiet. But it won't even physically fit on my 223 Wild, which has got the same thread as, purely because the moderator is so long and it's only a 20-inch barrel. Now I didn't know this, it's not like I didn't know it, but it's a perfect example of that would make my 223 really quiet. Okay, still going to get the supersonic crack, but wow, it's going to be good. But it won't physically fit, so you know, you've got to trade off against something. How big do you want your moderator? I mean, I've been using, if you're going for like a stainless steel moderator, like someone like the ASC Ultra, something like that, I've used a North Star on the 223 Wild, I've used an SL5 on the 223 Wild, I've used SL7s on 338 lap or Magnum, and for a small moderator, wow, they are good, because everything is in front of the crown. Because generally, if it's in front of the crown, it's doing a lot more work and a lot more moderation than if it's expansion volume back here. That's not to say that the reflex expansion volume doesn't help, but you will still never beat physical moderation and baffles beyond the forward moving gases. But there are great moderators. I mean, I've used Freya and Devitt, which is super light. I've used Hausken. Hauskens can be very quiet, but they also make super big ones which are super quiet. I've used all sorts. There are some moderators that I won't even mention the names that are a bit sort of a bit of metal with a name on it, but I'll mention some good ones. You've got Wildcats, you've got Hauskens, you have, my brain's going a bit blank now. Wildcats, Hauskens, the ASC ones are great, and because they're full stainless steel, they're quite heavy, but they do last well. And on training rifles where you've got a lot of rounds going down them, they do last because you know they just avoid the gas cutting as badly and this like that. But yeah, there are lots of great moderators. But weight and size are a critical factor, because you don't want, you know, a pencil thin long stalking barrel with a great long moderator sticking on the end of it. It's a balance. I think you could say that the larger expansion volume and the larger, you know, propellant gas volume is probably somewhat tallied in line. I don't know how much I really can justify the benefit of going to, like on the diffusers, you know, going from a 6.5mm to a 7.62mm or whatever. I don't think it's easy to really notice the difference, because you've so many other factors involved, like bullet weight, powder burn speed, what the actual cartridge is, barrel length, this, that and the other. It's so rare you can, you know, choose, I want 5 rifles with 1 inch difference in the barrels, or I want 5 moderators, all identical except for the diffuser size and this, that and the other. You never get that opportunity, and that's why it's always reviewing and never testing, because you can't put things perfectly head to head. Rob Newton, hi Chris, I'm thinking of getting a Hawk Frontier. It's got my T3X 308 for deer. Is this good choice for the money? 600 quid, what would you recommend? Cheers. Right, I don't think you'll be that, I don't think you'll go far wrong with them, to be honest, because Hawk do make some very good scopes these days. They're not the brightest for image quality, they've not got the absolute finest resolution, but in terms of pound for pound bang for your buck, they're offering a lot. They've got good adjustments, good turrets, they're well made, they're nicely finished, they look, you know, they look nicely made scopes, and they tend to, what they advertise they'll do, they tend to do well. They don't say blah blah blah, this, that and the other, blah blah blah, and you're left with like mushy squishy clicks or things like that and horrible scopes. They've got good firm clicks. I mean, just to the side of that wall, there's a couple of scopes in the box. Is actually a Hawk scope, and I have. I'm trying to think, I took a Sauer 100 field shoot 6.5 Creamer and shot 1,000 meters using a Hawk scope with it. No bother at all. Actually, on my 2.2 rimfires, I was using one the other week with a Hawk scope on it, and you know, it had slightly more magnification than the CZ LRP, which had a premium optic on it, slightly lower magnification. Funny enough, I shot smaller groups with the cheaper scope of the cheaper rifle, just because I had a little bit more magnification on a day where it was beneficial from it. Had it been super hot, bad air quality, this, that and the other, I might have erred the other way. So I don't think you'll go far wrong with one. Just, you know, if you're stalking in daylight and you're not trying to do everything, you know, dawn and dusk, I don't think you'll notice a horrendous amount of difference. And the warranties on things are good, so go with it. Enjoy using it. Enjoy using it, because I don't think you'll prove yourself wrong. Right, best night vision setup for foxing, 1K budget. That's definitely not going to win a hat, because it's the most repetitive question ever. I'll be deciding these afterwards, by the way, and I'll take somebody off here and I'll message you and I'll say, right, you want a hat, send me your details. Best night vision set for foxing, 1K budget. If you're going to spend £1,000, probably a Wraith 4K, but I'd probably spend less and spend the money up to £1,000 on a good illuminator, because a Wraith 4K without a good illuminator is a bit like a torch without batteries. They all are, all night vision. The illuminator is half of the package, so concentrate on that. Don't lose focus on the illuminator. But you know, I like the Parkin and the Wraith they've both got benefits to them. The Wraith is a little bit more ambidextrous. The Parkin is a lot more compact. I think the Parkin might suffer a little bit less from getting bumped around because it's not on quite as long an extension either. The Wraith goes back, it's better for putting an illuminator because you can put it on top. If you go up to the Wraith 4K, your illuminator's back on the side, kind of in your way. So, tricky one. I think on a smaller, more compact gun, like you know, if it was a rat shooting rifle or a close range bunny gun, I'd go Parkin. If it's for foxing, I'd probably go Wraith. Not for image quality specifically, just for the usability of them. Yeah, maybe. Don't know. Right. Right, Guy, thanks very much for answering the questions. I was showing which scope do you have on your Mauser that you use for stalking. It's a Schmidt and Bender T96 2.5 to 10 by 54, I think it is. It's very nice. It's very bright. It's so bright. It's almost harsh to use in daylight because it's so bright. But you know, I get yeah, that's a bit of an indulgence there. A bit of an indulgence to say the least. Edward Sheridan, would you use a 243 grain on row? Yes, absolutely. Why not? It's perfectly legal, perfectly effective, and pretty much the ideal thing to do. I don't actually think I've ever shot a row with a 243 though, odd as it is. I've always been a 30 cal and a 6.5 guy. Most of my 243 stuff's been foxing, to be honest. Shot some small stuff. And, I can't think of a specific one with a 243. But if someone said there's a 243, there's some 100 grain bullets, go zero it, go shoot a deer, I go fine, absolutely fine, no problem at all. Wouldn't bother me at all. Absolutely within its design remit and specification. Right, Jose Carlos. Hi Chris, have you used Yaki moderators? No, I'm afraid I haven't. Sounds Scandinavian, it might be under a different name when it gets to the UK. Right. Oh, Kahubajubada. Hang on. Right. Kahubaji. How do you feel about Russian rifles? Horrid. Would be a really bad joke. I think I've only shot one. I'm just trying to think. I've not shot a Mosin Nagant. I've shot a single shot AK-47 because there's one down in Wales. I've used that quite a lot. I strangely quite like it. I'm not a Mr. Tactical guy, but there's something very, very not tactical about AK-47s. It's a Yugoslavian one down there which I've used. Is it a Yugoslavian one? I think it's a Yugoslavian one. But it's converted to single shot. So, ironically, you go from a rifle that's so unbelievably consistently reliable in its semi-automatic format to one that when you make it a single shot, it's actually a little bit tricky to use because there's so much missing from within the action that there's all sorts of spaces where those little 7.62-39 cases will fall into and jam, and you've got to dismantle it to get them out. Whereas when it's on full auto, semi-auto, with the gas piston working, it's got so much faster bolt speed, you've got so much more reliable ejection. Whereas when you're using it by hand, you've got to tip it to one side and you've got to kind of rack it from underneath to make sure the brass drops low, because you haven't physically got enough force and speed on the handle to throw it as fast as it would have done as it was designed to do by the gas piston assembly. But yeah, I kind of like it, and I love things that are brutally reliable, and you know, it was made for purpose, it was fit for purpose, it's evolved a little bit, but it's still so much of always what it was, and it'll never be the finest tool in the world, but it's a serious tool. So yeah, you can't not like them in a strange way. But some of the older ones, I mean, I've never done a huge amount of military rifles. I've shot a few Mausers, shot a few Enfields, this, that and the other. Had a few Swedish Mausers and things, but yeah, I like shooting the older guns. It's nice. It's a bit of a difference for me, but it's when, you know, opportunity allows, really. Right, Lucas, have you ever shot a Sabatti rifle? Are they any good? I've shot a few. They're all right. They're you know, they're what they're worth. They certainly didn't strike me as below their own value, and they certainly didn't. I'm trying to think which ones they were now. You're talking Howler money or a little bit more, really, aren't you? But yeah, they were reliable. They were good tools to do the job. They weren't particularly flash. I seem to remember at the club I used to go to, there were a couple of guys bought them there because the shop had a bit of a deal on them. They had some very heavy barrels, which were very stable to use, but when they got hot, you couldn't get them cooled down. They were that big. But yeah, they were generally alright. They used 5-hour rifling and stuff like that, or they've got their own proprietary rifling system, which is a bit like a 5R, but it's slightly different enough to be different, I think. But I can't remember them all. Right. Right, Jean-Paul Gaultier. No, please don't ask silly questions. Thomas, do you know when Strasser will come out with a synthetic stock for the RS14? Heard they are working on it. Well, funny enough, I've got a call with Sportsman Gun Centre tomorrow, so I can ask that one and find out, because they are the UK importer and distributor for the Strasser rifles. So we shall see. Remind me if I forget. Right, well, we've got to 9:15. Oh, another question just popped in. Aloha, brother Chris. Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure that means something nice. Who knows? Right, we've got to 7:15 or a little bit. Sorry, 18 minutes past 9. All this talking has... I shall just have one last refresh. Thank you very much for coming along. Thank you very much for all these lovely questions. Apologies for last week when it just didn't work, but I think I've got the hang of this. There you go, Sabatti's got multi-radial rifling. So it's basically 5R, but a bit different, to avoid a patent issue or something like that, probably. Thank you for coming along. Thank you for all your questions. It's been a good night tonight. Nice to see lots of new names and faces. Quite a few international sort of looking approaches there, which is nice to see that YouTube's getting all around the world. I hope you've been enjoying my reviews and videos online. I haven't done so many over the last couple of weeks, so I've been incredibly busy, and I've got a new thing going on with the shooting show as well, which I've been doing a few reviews for too. As I've always said, the written work has always taken the priority, because it's my monthly mortgage payments and things like that which have to go ahead. So thank you all for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please comment, please click the notification bell, because the more interaction I get back from you guys, the better it makes me feel about doing what I do. And I'll tell you now, you guys on YouTube all interact with me far more than any magazine writer, any magazine readers I've ever known. I get more questions in a night on this than I have in 10 years of magazines. So it's really great to hear from you all. So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining, and thank you for taking part. Look after yourselves, shoot safely, and we'll all hopefully be getting through this current storm before too much longer. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. And now I'm going to walk around there and turn the phone off. So, toodle pip everybody. If I can work out